Tonight, China's attempt to rewrite the Bible so that it can replace religious beliefs with state loyalty, and the killer of Afzal family to stand trial for terrorism charges. We cover stories about Israel's decision to deport Eritrean migrants, Saskatchewan's pronoun policy changes, and a global swimming event to highlight the plight of Palestinians. Assalamu alaikum and good evening. This is Muslim News Canada on Muslim Network TV. I am Aisha Ashraf. A US Congressman has accused the Chinese Communist Party of rewriting the Bible and forcing churches to replace the Ten Commandments with quotes from President Xi Jinping. US Congressman Mike Gallagher recorded a message for the Parliament of the World's Religions in Chicago last month, calling the distortion of religious books part of a broader effort by the Chinese government to suppress religion. Gallagher cites a textbook published by the Chinese government-run press. The textbook falsely claims the story of Jesus and the adulterous woman ends with Jesus stoning the woman to death. This is a misrepresentation of the Bible, which teaches that Jesus forgave the woman and told her to go and sin no more. He quotes another example of government officials in China's Henan province forcing churches to replace the Ten Commandments with quotes from President Xi Jinping. Gallagher says this is an attempt by the Chinese government to replace religious beliefs with loyalty to the state. He says the persecution of religious groups in China is not limited to Christianity. He says the Chinese government is also persecuting followers of Islam, Falun Gong, and Buddhism. Despite the persecution, faith still persists in China. There are underground churches and secret mosques. Courageous clergy continue to practice their faith. A Canadian court is pursuing the case against Nathaniel Veltman, who murdered 4 members of a Pakistani Muslim family as a terrorist offense. Veltman committed the murders of members of the Afzal family in June 2021 in the town of London, Ontario. The family is believed to have been targeted because of their Islamic faith. Veltman's trial is the first time that terrorism charges have been invoked as a basis for first-degree murder in a jury trial. In the past, Canadian terrorism laws have tended to be designed to prevent attacks similar to 9/11 and have been used primarily against known terrorist groups. Veltman is charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder and will stand trial for 12 weeks. The incident occurred when Veltman hit the Afzal family with a pickup lorry while walking in their neighborhood. A 5th member, a 9-year-old boy, suffered serious injuries. The Muslim community in Canada has expressed concerns that Islamophobia is not being tackled as rigorously as it should be. Some believe that classifying a violent hate crime against Muslims as terrorism, while not essential for the imposition of a life sentence, has symbolic value. A revised civil lawsuit in the US is accusing social media platform X, formerly known as Twitter, of aiding Saudi Arabia in serious human rights abuses against its users. According to the lawsuit, the company provided confidential user data to Saudi authorities on their request. The lawsuit alleges X has shared data to Saudi authorities at a much higher frequency than it has to authorities in the US, the UK, or Canada. The lawsuit is brought by Arid al-Sadan, whose brother, a Saudi aid worker, mysteriously disappeared and was later sentenced to 20 years in prison. The lawsuit shows how 3 Saudi agents infiltrated the social media giant for 1 year between 2014 to 2015. 2 of these agents were posing as Twitter employees. This led to the arrest of al-Sadan's brother on charges of dissent. The lawsuit says the infiltration also exposed the identities of thousands of Twitter users, some of whom were reportedly detained and tortured as part of the government's crackdown. New allegations include the then CEO, Jack Dorsey, and the company overlooked the Saudi government's operations. The lawsuit also alleges that Twitter failed to act effectively despite knowing about the security threats to user data. It says requests for urgent disclosure of data were immediately approved by the company, allowing the Saudi kingdom to access user data. The lawsuit says Twitter continued its strategic meetings with Saudi Arabia. Dorsey met with Mohammed bin Salman about 6 months after the FBI alerted Twitter to the breach. Arijal Sadan has appealed to Saudi Arabia to release her brother and allow him to reunite with his family in the United States. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is calling African migrants a significant concern for the future of Israel. He's describing them as a quote, real threat for the Jewish people. The news comes after 140 Eritrean asylum seekers were reportedly injured. Tensions flared as one group of migrants supported their home regime, while the other group opposed their government's policies. Prime Minister Netanyahu has called for the expulsion of illegal immigrants involved in the unrest. He says the Israeli government cannot accept the kind of unrest caused by the Eritrean asylum seekers. He has now appointed a ministerial committee to consider strict measures against those involved, including immediate deportations. Footage from the scene in Tel Aviv shows confrontations between police and protesters, as well as between two factions of the Eritrean community itself. Eritreans make up a significant proportion of African asylum seekers in Israel, numbering over 30,000. Similar clashes have also been observed in previous years. New York City has declared that mosques do not need a permit to broadcast the call to prayer, also known as the Adan, every Friday afternoon. This comes after concerns from some residents that a permit was required. Mayor Eric Adams and other city leaders said that the Adan is protected by the First Amendment and the mosques are free to practice their faith. They also pointed out that other houses of worship, such as churches and synagogues, are also not required to obtain a permit to broadcast their calls to worship. The city has also announced that it will be working to educate residents about the Adan and its significance in the Muslim community. This includes distributing flyers and holding community meetings. The Adan is a call to prayer that is recited 5 times a day by Muslims. An LGBTQ group has launched legal action against the Saskatchewan government to challenge its recent pronoun policy regarding school children. The new policy will require parental consent for children to use different names or pronouns in school. The province announced the charges to the policy last month. A Regina-based organization representing LGBTQ community has filed a legal suit against the provincial government. The plaintiff UR Pride Center for Sexuality and Gender Diversity argues that the policy violates the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The organization says the government's move does not ensure a safe educational government for gender diverse students. The petition says the policy could potentially disclose a student's gender identity to his or her parents before the child is ready. It argues that this scenario can put the child at risk for unacceptance and misgendering. Such policies, according to UR Pride, violate 2 sections of the Charter that guarantee individual rights and non-discrimination. The Saskatchewan government says it stands by its policy and emphasizes the important role of parents. However, UR Pride, supported by national LGBTQ advocates and a prominent law firm, believes the policy represents a major and negative change from past practices. They claim that proper consultation did not take place prior to the policy's implementation, and the new policy changes unfairly exclude LGBTQ youth. UR Pride is also seeking protection from adverse costs if the request is unsuccessful. A recent swimming event has drawn attention to the miserable condition of Palestinians living under Israeli apartheid. Thousands of people around the world participated this past Saturday in the Swim with Gaza campaign to draw attention to the hardships of Palestinians. The Gaza Strip has been under an Israeli blockade since 2007, when Hamas took control of the region. Nearly 2.3 million Gazans were affected by the blockade. In Canada, Chile, South Africa, Portugal, and Ireland, participants gathered at beaches and swimming pools to swim in solidarity with the people of Gaza. In Brighton, England, a group of 40 people gathered on Brighton Beach wearing Palestine-themed clothing. The Swim with Gaza campaign is the first international event of its kind. Organizers hope to make it an annual event to raise awareness of the plight of people of the people of Gaza. In addition to the swim, other events in support of Gaza took place on Saturday. Russell Johns, a representative of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, said the blockade has been in place for 16 years. John said the event is meant to highlight how detrimental the blockade is and how necessary it is to lift it. A participant in Saturday's event described Gaza as one of the largest open-air prisons in the world. The blockade is having a devastating impact on Gaza's economy and infrastructure, making it difficult for people to access essentials such as food, water, and medicine. Thank you for watching. We need your support for donations. Please scan the QR code on our broadcast or visit muslimnetwork.tv to donate now, so we can continue to amplify the voices of Muslims in Canada and abroad.